Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Leonard, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Leonard. We have Jimmy Lackey, CEO, Prez, everything over at Kids Inc. Jimmy, how are you today?
Awesome.
Aren't you
got my buddy
up?
here.
I know.
It's going to be fun.
You have a pep in your step today. I like that.
It's going to be fun.
Hey, just a reminder, this is a production of Kids Inc. In the Sports Network. We're having a blast doing this. Thank you so much for the comments. And if you have somebody you want us to interview, give us a shout. Let us know what's going on. So we're just having fun with this, and we're glad you are as well. We got a lot of response from the Leslie Broadhurst interview. That was emotional and things like that, but we've had a lot of really informational ones. But I can't wait to get going with this one. And this is going to embarrass him. This isn't his style. And Jimmy, we had to write down what this man did. Alex O'Brien is with us. Alex, he is the GOAT of Amarillo tennis. And I mean, that phrase is used a lot, but he's the greatest of all time to come from here. And here's some of the facts. I know you don't want to hear all these, but the greatest thing that ever happened to Alex when he was 12, the first interview by a Cub reporter from the Amarillo Globe-News, Lance Leonard. That was the first interview I ever did, was Alex O'Brien. He was out at Austin Tennis Center and kind of showing me the way to do it. You know what I mean? The photo and everything. I got a kick out of that. I know you don't remember that.
No,
at that time you were no taller than the net, though you were a late grower.
100%. My freshman year in college, I think I grew 4 inches. So I've been kind of the little man for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
or you might have played basketball, correct?
I did. I played a lot of basketball, and I had to stop in high school because they basically looked at me and they're like, "It's not going to happen, buddy. You're too small." So,
but what he did was in Class 5A at Tascosa. That's where he went. Teamed with Stephen Dye to win the '87 5A championship. Then the next year, Alex went singles and won the state championship there. Then he goes on to Stanford, where he's a 4-time All-American, won the NCAA singles, doubles, and team titles, and he's in the Stanford Athletics Hall of Fame, and we'll chat with him about that. Then he spent 11 years, I don't want to be wrong on that, 1992 to 2003, as a professional.
2001.
2001?
I retired in 2001.
Okay, as a professional.
You can give me a couple extra years. I'll take them.
Would you, if you were healthy, would you have done it?
I was healthy, and it's interesting because at the end of my career, I kind of was done. I wasn't playing very good in singles, and I'd hit that point where I realized I started looking around at the other players, and I was like, these guys are really good. And when you look around at the other guys and you say these guys are really good, you can't continue to play. And
it's
so
time, huh? I
could have played doubles probably for another 3 or 4 years. I think my ranking was pretty high when I quit. But I just decided that was time to pack it in.
Yeah. Alex did win at New Haven in singles in '96, 13 doubles titles, and then 20 other times reached the finals. He did rank number 1 in the world in doubles, and that was in 2000. And then he reached his highest 30 in the world. I mean, that's no easy chore, is it? I don't exactly understand how you get the points to be ranked, but to be 30, you had to be pretty dang good.
Yeah, so the point system was pretty logical. Basically, the bigger the tournament, the more points they had. And so if you did well in bigger tournaments, you could get your ranking up quicker. If you played the smaller, lower tier tournaments, it was more of a grind, and you had to really work hard and play a lot of those tournaments to get your ranking up. And so that summer in '96, I actually, the year before, I went through a huge, kind of like welcome to the tour, welcome to life, welcome to thinking you're too good, welcome to high expectations. And my ranking dropped all the way down in the 200s. And I really was in a crisis, especially in my mind, because all my worth and all my self-esteem and everything I did was based off how well I did in tennis and what my ranking was. And my ranking was in the tank. And so I remember I went to a sports psychologist, and he was also a tennis player, and he was working with me, and he was like, well, he looked at me and he watched me play, and he said, well, you're not really that talented. And so that, and I remember thinking, now you're a sports psychologist, but the end of the story is that I worked hard. I hung in there. I kept my attitude up. I tried to. I almost kind of had a point where I let go of my worth being in a ranking, and once I had that happen, everything started clicking for me, and I started playing really well. I started winning matches. I started looking at the guy across the net and thinking, this guy can't hurt me. He doesn't have anything to bother me. And so that year in '96, I think, looking back on my career, I literally had 8 months out of my 10-year career that I played really well, and I was on and I was feeling it, and that was it. But it was a really fun time, and looking back on it, I'm fortunate that I had that time and that I was able to play like that. And so I stopped at number 30 in the world for a cup of tea, and then I got hurt and I was out of there.
Yeah.
Our listeners need to understand something. Him and his partner won the U.S.
Open. Yeah, that's
they won the
up.
U.S.
Yeah.
Open in '99.
Yeah. Played at Wimbledon, played at the U.S. Open, played the French Open, played the Aussie Open. Like Jimmy said, teamed with Sebastian Leroux. Mm-hmm. Good friend still?
Yeah. He sends me an email every March 7th, my birthday, and says happy birthday and checks in with me, and we kind of have a little conversation back and forth. And so he's a really cool guy. He's a smart guy and an intellectual guy, and a French Canadian and a fun guy to be around.
Yeah. And they went and then made the finals in 3 other Grand Slams. Also, this is way cool in my opinion. Olympian in Sydney in 2000. 2 Tascosa Cats in the Olympics. Yeah. You and Brandon Slay. And then also a United States Davis Cup. I know that was a special time. So those just are a few of the highlights. It's amazing.
And he's sitting at our table.
I know. This is awesome.
Right.
This is going to sound crazy, Alex, but you can't simply love something and be good at it. Did you love the competition, or did you love tennis? What is it that kept you going to be able to reach that height?
Well, to take it back a little bit, my older brother was a really good tennis player and was very talented, and my mom and dad were very supportive of our tennis, and my mom was so supportive and my dad were so supportive that they actually got a coach from Houston, Texas to come to Amarillo and help us at a young age. And really the intent was to help my brother because he was the talented one in the family. I fortunately benefited from that, and he was a Russian-style coach. His name is Bob Atkins, and he was a Russian-style coach where he would get a basket of balls and just feed you side to side to side to side. So we would literally hit 100 down the line and 100 cross court at 6 a.m. in the morning before school to start off. And so we had this, it was inculcated in us from a young age of like, you're tough, your fitness is important, mental toughness is important, footwork is important, wash, rinse, and repeat is important. And so we would just go over and over and over again. So much so that I remember he had this drill called the Monster that he would feed the ball anywhere in the court, and so you had to go chase it down and get it back over the net. If you got your racket on it, it didn't count. If you hit it in the net, it didn't count. If it went over in the court, it counted as 1. Actually, if you didn't get your racket on it, it was -1. So he would, depending on how long, let's say it was a 10-ball drill, if it was a 10-ball drill, he'd make it really hard, and he'd feed them really, way away from you. I remember watching Julie Vaughn, who was a girl in our group, on the side of the court throwing up, and he's feeding the ball saying -6, -7, -8. So we're all sitting there.
Julie Vaughn was a double state champ as well. Yeah,
great player, and she was tough as nails too. And so anyway, I think I really loved the competition. I loved over the repetitive nature of figuring out how to do something better and setting a goal and trying to figure out, okay, well, how do you get better at that? And I was always working on, how do I get better with my technique? How do I get better with my footwork? And that part of the journey I really enjoyed. I never was a guy who said, oh, I want to be this someday, or I want to be this someday. I was more, if we can fix this part of the puzzle and make this part of the puzzle better, then I think I'll be more successful in the end, and it will help me at the end game.
I like that.
Here's what I know about this guy. He doesn't like to lose.
No.
And at the end of, I'm taking it back to what he's talking about here. At the end of the day, he doesn't like to lose. And so whatever it took to not lose is what he did to get where he went. I watched when he brought Jim Courier in for an exhibition, and those 2 young bucks that y'all played, But when you and Courier got on the court, it was game on. This was supposed to be a fun, fan-friendly deal. He's going to win. I mean, at the end of the day, he's going to show you. Well, this is what that looks like.
Well, the reason we did the story on Alex is he might not even remember this. He was playing in the adult. There weren't a lot of people involved in the adult bracket of the city championship that year. You know what I mean? You're just testing yourself as a teenager. You know, things like that. So that's why I was out there doing that story. But yeah. Well, the passion to not lose more than the passion to win, or what?
No, I think there are guys that like don't want to lose, or they value that more than trying to win. I was always trying to figure out, well, how can I win? And I definitely, but Jimmy, to your point, I think if you look at any pro athlete, there's a few exceptions. There's some guys that are just kind of out there, but they're all crazy. They're like they've got a screw loose, and they're so intense. And you look at like a Jordan or a Kobe, and what they take it to, the level that they take it to, they are honing their craft to such a like fine line, and they're so intense about the training and the mental side and the discipline of it. And I think that along with that is you don't want to lose because you've done all that work, and you want to figure out how do I win and how do I get better. So I don't think I was unique in that, and I think that I definitely think I have a screw loose and I'm a little crazy and I want to win to a point that it's probably unhealthy and it's a little bit dangerous. But I also think that everyone who gets to that level and pushes to that level, there's something of that in them.
I agree with 100% everything you said. Yeah, you've got a screw loose. But it's the word discipline. And I think that elite athlete understands what discipline means, and those that want to be elite athletes that don't understand what the discipline portion of it is don't get there. And I really think that was the key thing you just said, because you do get it. And yeah, if you're going to be an elite athlete, you live in a different world. You can call it what you want, screw loose, whatever you want, but you're in a whole arena that's in a it's no different than Kids Inc. I tell these parents all the time, that funnel is so tight, and they're thinking, oh, my kid's going to be a college scholarship athlete. The vast majority of them are going to be extremely disappointed at the end of the day if that's their goal in life, because of how tight that funnel is beyond. Yeah.
Well, and also the older I get, that you see a lot of kids and it's coming from the parent, and you can tell immediately where it's originating. And then you see kids that really have a passion for it. And when I see those kids, it gets me really excited, because I feel like I have a kindred spirit to that. My mom was really integral in my tennis and really integral in my growth, and my dad as well. But I think that like there's something that comes from here, and you see that you see that from certain athletes, and it's fun when you see that, because it's like, okay, let's go get this, and I'll help you however I can help you. And sometimes when I see that with the tennis players that are out there, I try to help them.
I remember the first time I saw a kid like that. My dad and I were sitting at a second grade basketball game in Canyon Intermediate School, and Nicole Hampton's the same age as my oldest daughter. And this kid grabbed a rebound and turned and looked full court, and her coach did a good job, had the kid trailing, and Nicole just launches the ball full court, and there's nobody within 30 feet of him. My dad looked at me and he goes, "She's special." And the resume shows it.
Yeah, All-American.
I remember that very vividly.
I think to the point, too, though, having an older brother, your goal in life was to beat him.
For sure.
One time on the tennis court.
For sure.
It's like the backyard basketball games, things like that.
100%.
And I think it helps the younger brother, because you're already going through that. You know what I mean?
I think the middle child benefits a lot from something like that, because they have somebody leading the charge, and it helped me a ton.
Yeah.
I also, as you mentioned, I played other sports, and I played basketball, and a good buddy of mine, Bill Lanier, and I used to go out and play one-on-one all afternoon, all evening, into the night, because we were both so crazy that we wanted to, win. And so we would go out there and just battle each other. But we also then afterwards would be like, that was so much fun, let's go do it again. It wasn't like there was any kind of ill intent or we're trying to kill each other. It was more like we wanted to win, we wanted to figure out a way to win, and we're going to take each other on. But yeah, I think that you can see that, as Jimmy was mentioning, you can see that in certain kids, and it's a lot of fun when you see that. and it's a lot of fun to watch them grow and watch their progress.
When you take it to the highest level, since you played the game at the highest level, you see a Federer with 20 and Nadal with, we're talking slams, Nadal with 22, Djokovic with 24. So to take it to that level, take us into possibly what their mindset is.
Yeah, well, so I remember watching Federer. I played him when he was 19, and I was good at picking people's games apart. And so I was warming up with him, and I was like, yeah, forehand looks good. And I was like, backhand looks good. And I'm like, volleys look good. And I was kind of thinking, serve looks good. And I was playing him on grass, which is, good service for him. It was also good for me, but I didn't really know who he was. He was young at the time, and I think I lost 4-4. But he just had so much talent, and he could hit any shot. The thing that he did that speaks to what we were talking about today is he got a coach that went out and fed him a ton of balls. His biggest nemesis or what hurt him in his game was he went for too many fancy shots at the wrong time, and he could make those shots, but he wasn't consistent enough, and he didn't have that just solid, defensive style of game that he could then transition into offense. And so this coach, Peter Lundgren, who's a Swedish coach who was a baseline kind of grinder who hit tons and tons of balls, I remember him out there with the basket feeding Federer balls, and I was thinking to myself, man, this thing's going to be over. And then I think a year later is when he took off. And so those guys, they have the most talent, but then they also have the work ethic. And so when you combine those two, that's when you get, the Djokovic and the Nadals and the, Federers. And it really is, it really is fun to watch. And I have so much respect for Federer. He played with such a joy, and you don't see many athletes play with such a joy. And you could tell he loved being out there. And, obviously there are times when you don't love being out there, but the majority of his career, he played with just a kind of a free-flowing style of tennis, and he had a smile on his face, and he had this spirit that was like, I love this game. And I always was playing it like, I was this hard driving guy. It's like, how do I figure out how to win? And it's fun when you see guys like that take it to that level.
One thing before Jimmy asks you a question, I want to know, Alex, I found it very intriguing that your worth was in tennis. When that changed, did your life change too?
Yeah,
off the court, I meant.
I think that I battle with that all the time. Like, if you have an answer for me, I'm listening, because I think you're always trying to figure out, okay, who am I and where do I sit in the whole scheme of things? And then how do I become a better person? And then how do I work on things that are my weaknesses? And, even in business, it's been humbling going into business, because you learn so much every day that on the job you learn, you have failures, you have successes. And so, I'm trying to kind of go back to that style of, okay, how can we create a better machine and execute that machine and keep a humble, kind attitude and be a kind spirit to other people and those around you. And so that's something that tennis did not teach me. And tennis, you had to really put up a force field around you, because you had people coming up to you and they would say, hey, you changed your forehand, and why are you taking up so high? And why are you slow to recover from that side? And so you really blocked out all the noise and had to block out those that weren't in your inner circle. And so it's interesting, looking at it from the psychology side and the different perspectives and how you learn and how people, live their lives.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for everybody. I pray a lot. That's the only advice I have.
Yeah.
So what do you have?
I'd like to go to a break and
let's do
just
that
real quickly, and then come back.
But I want to know about Stanford a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We're going to talk about Stanford, and then we're going to reel it back to the kid level and talk about how we got all this started almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, I love that. And then, and if you don't mind, comment on pickleball for us. It's kind of, I don't know if tennis players hate pickleballers and pickleballers, but I think it's changed what everybody's doing out there right now. You see the pickleball courts everywhere. So, hey, stick with us. We got Alex O'Brien today. What a wonderful conversation. The insight's been so chilling. There's a reason I was not a great athlete. Just listen to it.
Me too.
How about you?
Yeah,
that mindset is amazing. Although I did play backyard basketball with a guy named Eric Bauman for hours upon hours. Yeah, it was awesome. And wiffle ball. Yeah. So, hey, we'll be back. This is the Fieldhouse Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Remember, it's a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network.
Before we dive back into the next segment, we would like to introduce the group that has contributed to the production of the Fieldhouse Podcast, Rogers Lead WT.
This year's lead scholars are Kyle Brown, Cade Cox, Morgan Ellerton, and Jenna Hurd, and Riley Miller. We partnered with Kids Inc. to create a podcast that would reach the sports community and make an impact on the community for years to come.
Rogers Lead WT is a 2-year leadership program at West Texas A&M University that select college students, develop their leadership skills, and gives them the opportunities that every college student should take advantage of.
The core values of Rogers Lead WT are integrity, service, excellence, teamwork, and dreaming big. And every lead scholar gets the opportunity to enhance these qualities as they develop into the leaders of the next generation.
And with that, we would like to thank the Kids Inc. staff and Jimmy for allowing us to be part of this amazing production. Now with that, back to the Fieldhouse Podcast.
Hey, welcome back into the Fieldhouse Podcast. I'm Lance Lonert, your host today, co-host here with Jimmy Lackey. And then, of course, we have the esteemed tennis player, Alex O'Brien, who more of a husband and dad now, wouldn't you say?
That's right.
100%.
100%.
That's the best job you can possibly have.
Yes.
So, hey, we mentioned about it earlier in the show, but in the Cat Pod, but man, Stanford. You come out of Tasco, so we don't have many athletes from the Panhandle go to Stanford. We really don't. And the opportunity to go there, it was the great John McEnroe that was his alma mater, Tiger Woods, all these players. But tell us about Stanford, because you ended up having a career that's not been seen since.
It was amazing. Like I feel so lucky that I got a chance to go there. Thank you, Dr. Sutherland, for suggesting that I go to Stanford. He was the one who kind of said, I told him where I was applying, and he's like, well, why not Stanford? And I was like, I don't know. And so I ended up applying to Stanford and got in, and I'm very grateful for it. My coach, Dick Gould, won 17 titles out of 32 years.
Wow.
And we won 3 out of the 4 years that I was there. And the year that we lost, we should not have lost. However, my senior year, we should not have won. So, it was, but more importantly were the people that I met going to school there, that you meet these amazing people that are top of the field in everything that they do. And I got to the point where I wouldn't even say that I played tennis, because I was speaking to somebody and they would say, well, I was first chair in the Vienna Philharmonic and I traveled the world playing, this and that. And so
Eddie McCaffrey was a friend of yours out there, right? Eddie Mack.
Yeah, McCaffrey was in our fraternity, and so there were a lot of exceptional people, but the greatest part of it was they're all a lot of fun, and they're a lot of fun to hang out with. They're a lot of fun to talk to. They can talk to you about anything. The subjects that we would cover, even when I still go back for my reunions, it's just a lot of fun to visit with the group of people that Stanford assembles, and looking back on it, I feel so lucky and so privileged to have that opportunity to have been able to do that. So it was a big changing point in my life.
2004, you were placed into the Stanford Athletics Hall of Honor, a prestigious honor. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so in 2004, I retired in 2001, and so I was still trying to redefine myself and trying to figure out, okay, who am I and what value do I add to this world? And I really was not excited about the tennis aspect of my life, and I was trying to almost like put it behind me. And so, I mentioned to you guys earlier, I gave one of the worst speeches ever given probably in the history of Stanford Hall of Fame acceptance speeches. And it wasn't that my speech was like really a bad speech. It was that I didn't feel it from here, and I had no interest in being there. And looking back on it, I didn't realize that it wasn't about me. It was about tennis, and it was about Stanford, and it was about this great sport and this great school and all that both of those have given to me and to everyone in that area. And looking back on it, I wish I could have a redo, because I'm so thankful for what tennis has given me. I'm so thankful for what Stanford offered me. I'm so thankful for the ability that I have to be involved in both of those organizations, in tennis and in Stanford. And so really, if I could have summed it up, I wish I would have said that. But I was so selfish and so self-obsessed and concerned that all I was thinking about was myself and the bad place and the hole that I was in, that I couldn't deliver something from the heart. And so, I wish I could do a redo on that, but I'm also thankful that I'm in the Stanford Hall of Fame and thankful that I even went to Stanford.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, that's like you said, not many people from around here end up there. And
no, it's yeah.
My dad was followers of those. He was a big follower of schools like that. Rice, places like that were the places he was really akin to, because when a kid went there, they were special. And and then to take it to what you did is even better. And never forgot where you came from either.
Yeah, that's what's cool about you, really is. I got to ask you one thing. I'm just curious, and then we can get into the other subjects. But, man, I mean, walking on to Wimbledon for the first time, for the average fan, we see it on TV, see the grass and all that. So, I mean, the average, not the hardcore even tennis fan, knows Wimbledon. What was that experience like? I mean, because I'm sure that was a dream of yours maybe early in your life.
Yeah, for sure. When you walk onto that grass court and you walk through those grounds, I mean, it's like Augusta. It's the Augusta of tennis, and everything's immaculate there. The British are immaculate with their speech and their rules and their strawberries and cream and just all the traditions and everything that goes with it. And when you walk out on that court for the first time, you're almost kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm really here, and this is surreal to me. And actually, that's one place that I'd like to take my kids back and show them, those grounds and watch that tournament, because it's such a special place. And I had a couple decent, successful tournaments there. We made it to the semis of doubles one year, and I actually single-handedly lost the match. We were up 2-0, and I fell apart. And I take full credit for this one. It still bums me out, but I got rattled by something, and then I never really recovered. That team ended up winning that year. I think we had a good chance to win that year, but I kind of melted down. I was in the third round playing Peter Korda, who is number one in the world at one time. His kids, Nelly and and Sebastian are, and he has another daughter that's also a really good golfer. You probably know what her name is. I'm blanking on her name right now, but he was a really good player, and I had him 4-1 serving down in the fifth, and I actually didn't choke this time. He just played some good tennis, and then he played Sampras in the fourth round, and I would have played Sampras on center court in the fourth round, which would have been pretty cool. Yeah. But I I had so many great memories there, and it's an amazing venue, and there is something unique about that Grand Slam compared to all the others, because it's so special and different, and that is the tournament that everyone wants to win in tennis.
Behind the scenes, are the players friends, Alex? Because you guys are kind of in the same little. I kind of call it the circus, like golfers today, you're going from town to town to town, putting on your show, you know what I mean? But are the players, I mean, I know there's personalities that are going to be way different, so some aren't going to click, but in general, are the players pretty close to each other?
Yeah, I think that was something that was really important for me personally. I had a really good group of friends, and so when we would travel, we would always go out to dinner together. We would help each other, even sometimes go out to dinner when we're playing each other the next day, because you just knew that was part of it. And so that was your family and your support group. And if you didn't buy into that, 30 to 36 weeks on the road, like that's like you said, it's an itinerant lifestyle.
I think Sampras is one of those friends, correct?
Yeah, Sampras was a buddy of mine, and so we had a really good group of American guys that we ended up hanging out with a lot. Now, we didn't, exclude or discriminate against anyone else, because we had all sorts of friends that we would hang out with, and it almost would depend on which tournament you played in and who was playing in that tournament. And you would base kind of where you would go to dinner and with whom you would go to dinner around a lot of that and practices and all that. And I'll still have dreams where I'm like, oh, I'm miss a sign-in for doubles, or I was supposed to practice and I missed my practice time, or whatever. It's just funny.
That's cool. Yeah, Courier was one too, right?
Yeah. Courier's a good buddy of mine, and he's been unbelievably helpful for, these charity events that we've had here, and also for just keeping me in touch with the tennis guys and keeping that going.
Yeah, yeah. Rich Eisen as well, believe it or not. I mean, the list goes long with Alex,
long.
so yeah.
I mean, I can remember, Wimbledon was always my favorite. It was always around July 4th. And I can remember growing up just to see Bjorn Borg drop to his knees after winning. That was my favorite thing.
Incredible.
And then all of a sudden it didn't happen. But how many times in a row did it happen before it didn't? Yeah. And I remember that. And I had friends that were tennis players. I was more of a golfer back then, but that was one of my favorite things of the summer. But to see him, I have vivid memories of that.
Johnny Mack was the guy that ended his reign, and Johnny Mack, I played Davis Cup for him twice, and he was not a very good coach, but he was a lot of fun. He was a really cool guy, and he told one of my favorite stories about playing. He loved Borg. He was obsessed with Borg. They were really, really good friends, and Johnny Mack didn't really, love a lot of other players, and so he was playing him, and it was 5-all in the third set, and it was in a pretty big tournament, and he got a bad line call, and he was carrying on as he does, and screaming and yelling, and playing his Johnny Mack part, and he said he looked up and he said Borg was sitting at the net. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Borg had a really bad temper as a kid, and they actually locked his racket up for a year and took it away from him, and he just bottled everything in.
Didn't know this,
And so he could identify with what Mac was going through. So he waves him up to the net, and so Mac was kind of like, oh, this is strange. And so he puts his hand on his shoulder and he goes, it's going to be okay. and so Johnny Mack said he kind of realized, okay, he's right, And so it gave me chills when he told that story, because those guys really did love each other. And I grew up, I was right there with you. I was on the 4th of July watching those guys battle it out and those epic matches. And
the documentary on Borg is outstanding.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
It really is.
Really is.
Wooden rackets, I always love. I don't know why. Yeah. That reminds me of my childhood when they're playing with the wooden rackets there. But and then they had the class, obviously, so many great matches there.
Incredible.
Is the grass like a putting green?
So it's more like a putting green now. When I was playing, it was a little bit softer. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but everybody stays back there, and they've slowed the courts down and they made them harder, so they're almost similar to a hard court, but with a little bit of skid to it. So yeah, that's a good analogy on the putting green.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's fascinating. I've never been on a grass court, so I don't know what that looks like or feels like.
You have to adjust to it a little bit. The ball stays a little bit lower. You use different muscles, so and it's only a month out of the year, so there's a little bit of adjustment. And you're coming from clay, which is a higher bouncing, sliding surface, and so it's a little bit of an adjustment. But it's there is something really beautiful about the scenery and the way that they set up Wimbledon, and just the colors and the people and the pageantry. It's really fun.
Was there a favorite arena you ever played in?
Well, I mean, I'm partial to the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
I'm just because I'm an American, but and maybe because I won there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Wimbledon has to be the kind of the It's the one that everyone wants to win.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about youth tennis, and we're going to delve into the onslaught of pickleball. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast on the Kids Inc. Sports Network.
Before we dive back into today's episode, let me share a fun fact with you. Did you know that the Fieldhouse Podcast is a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network? That's right, Kids Inc. isn't just any sports organization. We have been a source for youth sports since 1945. From teaching kids the fundamentals of teamwork to fostering a love for the game, Kids Inc. is where champions are made. And here's the best part. As a listener of the Fieldhouse Podcast, you're a part of the Kids Inc. family too. Head over to kidsinc.org to learn more about current registrations, upcoming sports leagues, and how you can get involved in supporting your local young athletes. But wait, here's the kicker. Have you heard of the Rock Rose Sports Park Home Field Advantage campaign? It's a game changer for our community, aiming to provide state-of-the-art facilities for young athletes to train and compete. So if you believe in the power of sports to shape young lives and want to be a part of something truly special, check out kidsinc.org today and join us in making a difference. Together, let's continue to support the next generation of champions and to ensure that every child has the opportunity to succeed both on and off the field.
Hey, welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast. We're having a lot of fun here with Alex O'Brien. Jimmy, Alex is involved with the youth, obviously, of Amarillo and beyond, but can you explain what's going on there?
So I'm going to take you back to 2014, so 10 years ago. I get a call from this guy, and he says, hey, do you think we could partner with y'all and put a tennis program together that gets a racket in a kiddo's hands? He said, I'm tired of tennis being perceived as a country club sport. Those were his exact words to me. I said, sure, I'd love to.
I love that.
And he said, if we could get 25 kids to sign up. And I said, I bet we can get 100. You tell me right there, there's the cursor on my screen. What does that number say right there?
That says 464.
That's how many kids we had the first year show up for this tennis program.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was too many. But this guy made it happen, and he had an onslaught of volunteers that came out and worked with these kiddos. The USTA sent folks to Amarillo and put this Learn to Play tennis program together and helped us put a curriculum together with it. He's got folks on his board. They're outstanding and are committed to the game of tennis. But he truly wanted something that could just put a racket in a kiddo's hands, because think about all the tennis courts we have in our community now. All the high schools have nice tennis facilities. And so that's how it got started, and I'll let him take it from there. But it really started with a phone call, and it just happened.
Well,
you were a country club guy, you know what I mean? So where'd that thought come from, Alex?
Well, so first of all, Jimmy mentioned this already, but I want to give credit to Stacy Harwell came up with this idea, and it was a genius idea to get involved with Kids Inc. And we have an incredible board, and Renee Stovall is helping us again, and she is incredible. And so we have this board that is a can-do board that's like, okay, let's go get this thing in action. And I remember calling Jimmy, and Jimmy was so great because he's like, yeah, absolutely, we'll do this. This will be great. We'll get it going. And it was like there was never a doubt that this thing was going to happen. And it got me excited just talking to Jimmy, because he was like, he was right. I was like, do you think anyone will show up? Do you think we'll get more than 20 players? And he said, absolutely, we will. And so 10 years ago, we teamed up to start something that I didn't realize we'd be sitting here 10 years later talking about. And my kids play a little bit of tennis, and they play in these tournaments. And so I have parents that will come up to me and say, my kids started in the Learn to Play Kids Inc. program. And if that program didn't exist, we wouldn't be playing tennis today. And that, brings me and our board, and I'm sure Kids Inc. so much joy, because it's a lifetime sport, and it is a hard sport to enter. And back to the whole country club side of it, it's intimidating to try to play tennis if you don't know how to get into tennis. And so the really cool thing about this program is it allows kids to get into tennis, and then we show them, okay, not only is it not intimidating getting into tennis, but we give them a racket, and then we say, okay, here's where you can follow up and take more lessons, and here's where you can play tennis, and here's the coaches that will help you. And so it ends up being it's a win-win for everyone. So it's a really cool, and I'm proud of the partnership, and I appreciate what you've done to make this happen, because it wouldn't have happened without your kind of can-do attitude. And
well, the thing about it is we started out, and it was like, oh my gosh, 400 kids.
Yeah.
And so we pulled it off, and one of the beautiful things is watching it on a session. We'll have 3 sessions on a Saturday during this program, and in the last 3 or 4 years, since COVID for sure, they've partnered with the high school varsity tennis teams and JV teams, and those kids come out and work with our young kids, which is even more effective. And so you've got Alex's board, and then you've got all their volunteers, and then you've got these high school kids that these young kids resonate with.
Yeah.
And they're on all these courts at the tennis center, and they're getting one-to-one tutelage from these folks that they can look up to and say, okay, I kind of like this. And the best part about it is, as each year went on, Alex's group continued to add follow-up programs so that those kids that really became interested in tennis had a place to go next to advance their skills, and then even get more elite and start traveling and doing the things that make them better. And so it all morphed over the course of time into a full-round, year-round tennis opportunity for kiddos in this community. Look at the tennis success they've had at the high schools here in the last 2 or 3 years.
Going on.
I'm not saying that started in Kids Inc., but I'm just saying the interest level has boosted that to where people notice it, and obviously there's been some success at the high school levels.
It's going on right now. It's the state tennis tournament, and if you look in Class 4A, our district around there, the Herefords, the Randall, Canyon, they dominated that thing. I mean, they've got a lot of representatives.
Yeah.
7 of the 10 classifications, or whatever you want to call it, events, are represented by our guys right here.
Well, Jimmy nailed it. It's a sport that if you can build that community and you can build it from the ground up, it's more fun to play when your buddies are out there and your buddies are playing. And so it's I think this has helped build that community. As you mentioned, we definitely can't take credit for the community, but we've added to that overall community. And the more kids that you have playing, the bigger the tournaments are, the more fun it is to play in these tournaments because you have more competition. And so it's been an incredible program. And I don't know how it could go better. I think it's gone really, really well. And, and to give a selfless plug, we also do a free camp in June and July that we have 4 really qualified high school kids and out of high school kids that are coaching, that is at Memorial Park, and it's June and July. And so that's one of the follow-up programs that we have to our program. So if your kid is interested in playing tennis, wants to learn footwork, wants to learn shot skills, please come to that camp and sign up. And all you have to do is just show up, and you sign up when you show up, and you can show up any day. You can come any day of the week, and there's no obligation or commitment, and it's a lot of fun. So we have had some cool programs.
I think our program fees $55 for the kids to play. And I think about this: every one of them get a tennis racket. We order all these tennis rackets in, and that's theirs to keep.
Yeah.
And so they've got that. We have all this equipment back here. We have a curriculum. Renee built a curriculum in a notebook that's literally about this thick. And we have 3 bags back here in the warehouse, and we have area schools that come pick up this curriculum book, and they take them. We just had them from Pampa come pick them up right before spring break, and they pick up a bag, has all the rackets, has everything they need, and they take it back, and they do a week-long program in their school with a program that started out of a phone call.
Yeah, and that's actually Windows of a Wider World that's helped us with that program, and they're the ones that are the conduit to the high schools, and so and junior highs, and anyone who wants to in the PE area wants to check out these kits, they can check them out and teach their kids tennis. It has an explanation on how to do it, and it's been a really successful program, and put rackets in more kids' hands, which is really neat.
Yeah, and also
outside of the Amarillo Canyon area.
Yeah. Inside the Canyon Amarillo area, you need to compliment the CISD and AISD. You mentioned it, the facilities they have now, Alex.
Incredible.
No, not even compared to when you were in high school. But each one of the high schools has a really nice setup if you want to participate. And I know a bunch of those coaches, and they're into it.
100%.
You know what I mean? They love kids and they love tennis.
As you mentioned, if you're not going to be making it to state unless you're really into it. And
so
they're into it, and they're into the feeder system. This AISD has helped us a ton because we asked them to put middle school tennis back in play. They put middle school tennis back into play, which is amazing. And so then back to what Jimmy was saying, there's this avenue for kids to start at a young age and then follow it all the way up through the system without having to pay an arm and a leg to go get a private coach or go to a country club or whatever. You can go through and learn tennis and play tennis and learn a lifetime sport. And so that to me is a lot of fun, and a lot of fun from my perspective of like, hey, how can we create something that gives back to the community that's around the sport that I love so much? And so it's really cool.
Awesome.
So over a 10-year period, we've averaged 275 kids a year.
That's awesome.
That's pretty good from a phone call that he asked for 25.
Yeah, I love that story. That's a great story. Hey, the pickleball world, I'm just curious on your opinion on it. You think it's for old farts like myself, but it's not. You know what I mean? A lot of youth are taking it up. Is there a conflict between tennis and pickleball?
Definitely not. No, I think that I don't personally, I'm not a pickleball fan, but I think it's wonderful for tennis because you look at the energy of the courts. Like we play at Memorial Park all the time. I'll take my kids over there. There are always people playing pickleball, and they're playing music and they're having fun, and it's like this celebration almost, and I think it's great. I love it, and I love it. It's putting a racket in somebody's hand. There's another sport called padel, and we're looking into putting 2 padel courts at ANTC to even further build that racket kind of sport. And so
what is that game?
So it's it's a game that originated in Spain, and I think that's right, Spain. It may be Mexico, but I think it's Spain. And so it originated there, and so it is It's like a combination of pickle, tennis, racquetball, and it has a back glass wall that if you hit it too hard, it comes off the back wall and it'll come all the way back up the net and they'll hit you.
Oh,
so
wow.
you have to be thoughtful about how you place your shots, and it's another game that the barrier to entry is not real hard. You can pick up a racket a little bit like pickle, and that's what I love so much about pickle. Personally, I don't love pickle just because I'm more of a snob on like the racket sports and everything. But I think pickle's so great because you can pick up a racket and have a game with anyone quickly.
Yeah.
And that's a good sport. Like, that's fun.
Yeah.
And also get good exercise and have good fellowship. And so I love that aspect of it.
I've played it a couple of times, and I really did enjoy it.
Really fun.
You know what my duties are tonight?
What?
I'm cooking 40 hamburgers to take to my daughter and son-in-law's church group because they're playing pickleball tonight, and I'm cooking the meal.
That's great.
That's
awesome.
You're right. Just put a racket in somebody's hand. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I think it's. I was just curious what it is because my brother's like a 4-5 or something. He loves tennis. He refuses to pick up pickleball.
I think it's complimentary though, personally, because you get a lot of crossover, and it's great to go over to ANTC and see all the pickleball players. Then they see someone playing tennis, and they may be like, well,
yeah.
I'm going to pick up a tennis racket again and get into tennis. And then the tennis players are looking over the pickle guys saying, hey, maybe I'll get into pickle some. And so that's why we want to put we're going to try to put 2 padel courts over there at ANTC. And the city, by the way, has been unbelievable to work with
That's
as well.
good.
And so we think that will get even more people going over to the courts. And back to the fellowship side, I mean, what your daughter's doing tonight with 40 people going and hanging out, what does it matter what they're doing? As long as they're doing something athletic and they're hanging out and they're having fun, I feel like we need more of that in Amarillo and celebrate those type things.
In our Dalhart facility, we put a new finish on the basketball court, and we added 3 pickleball courts on that court because they're having a league right now.
How's that going?
Really good. And
yeah.
Stacy and them have taken care of it. Danny, our general manager up there, does a great job. But they've got a group of people playing in a pickleball league. It's our first one, and they're enjoying it. And that's you got to go with what's current. And pickleball right now is exploding.
It is.
Gene and Louise put 2 other pickleball courts back in a locker room that was on the back side of the gyms. So we actually have 5 courts.
That's great.
And they use them. So
right.
I see it.
Yeah.
I don't play.
Yeah.
I can't move fast enough.
The injury's Achilles tendon. You know what I mean? Tears.
I think
my wife hurt her ankle the first time she played.
Well, I was going to say the docks in town are probably pretty happy.
Yeah,
a lot
pretty
more
like
pickleball.
trampolines. They're like, bring it.
Yeah. That's it. You got anything else for Alex, man?
Thanks.
Yeah, that's the word. Thanks.
We've become really good friends. I will tell you, a lot of business decisions that we make around here, a lot of things that I think about doing, particularly on this Rockrell Sports Park. He's one of my council people that I call and ask advice from, and he's been great to me. And I'm just grateful for the friendship that we've established over the last 10 years. And thanks for doing this with us today.
Well, same back your direction, because this whole tennis venture that we've taken on together, and more than the tennis venture, but the friendship side, I'm thankful for too. So thank you for making this possible and for making it fun. And Lance, we've known each other forever. It's fun,
yeah. And
fun doing this, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show. It's fun.
Yeah, I just want to say publicly though, Jimmy, that Alex, whenever I needed an interview, always there. Really respected that for you, and I appreciate that. Even when you were way up there, I'd call every
I'll
once
give
in
you
a while.
that $5 after the show's over.
Okay, thanks, man. I got you. So, hey, that's Alex O'Brien. Thanks for the insight, man. I really enjoyed
fun.
The whole gamut of it. Yeah,
this was fun.
Jimmy, as always, great job, man.
Thanks.
All right, hey, let's hop out of here. We'll be back soon. This was the Fieldhouse Podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Ready to dive deep into the heart of sports? Then tune in, because that is exactly what we are here for at the Fieldhouse Podcast. But the Fieldhouse Podcast isn't just about us talking sports. It's about all of us, our community, our passions, and our love for the game. That's why we're reaching out to any and all local businesses who want to get in early on the action. Whether you're a restaurant looking to pack the house on game day, or a fitness center wanting to help our listeners take their game to the next level, We want to partner with you. By sponsoring the Fieldhouse Podcast, you're not just getting your brand out there, you're becoming a part of our sports family. Reach out to us today at fieldhouse@kidsinc.org. That's KIDSINC.org.